I kept thinking I'd feel lighter once I got through the boxes in the garage. But every time I opened one, I just felt more stuck. The real weight wasn't the stuff, it was the guilt. Guilt for wanting to let go of things my kids didn't care about. Guilt for donating things my parents once loved. Guilt for wasting money on items I never used. That's what made decluttering so hard. Not the mess, but the emotions packed into every decision. In this video, I'll walk you through some of the ways I finally made peace with that process. How I let go of things without feeling like I was letting people down. Nothing drastic, just small shifts that made a big difference. They're not saving it for sentiment. Most of us hang on to things thinking we're saving them for the kids. But when I finally asked mine, the answer was a hard no. Not even a maybe, just a flat out, "Please don't send that to me." That's when it hit me. They weren't clinging to the object, they were reacting to the memory of it. The old chairs, the holiday dishes, the school crafts. These things had emotional weight for me, not for them. And they didn't want to inherit my emotional storage closet. So I started doing something simple, asking, one item at a time. "Do you want this someday?" Most of the time the answer was no, and that gave me permission to let it go. It's not rejection, it's just reality. And honestly, it's freeing once you accept it. Next, I'll share the shift that helped me handle the guilt behind letting things go. What guilt really costs. Guilt is sneaky. It doesn't just show up when we're letting go of something meaningful. It shows up when we see the price tag we never justified or a gift we never used. And instead of setting us free, it makes us hold on even tighter. For me, it was an ice cream maker I bought during a healthy living phase. I pictured weekend batches with the kids' homemade toppings, the whole thing, but the machine sat in a cupboard for years. Every time I saw it, I felt bad for wasting money, for not becoming the mom who made homemade sorbet. I finally donated it. And you know what? That wave of guilt I'd been carrying for years disappeared in a day because someone else was thrilled to have it. If something brings more shame than joy, it's not serving you. Letting it go doesn't erase the mistake, it ends the cycle of being reminded by it. Honoring without holding everything. Losing someone often comes with a second burden, what to do with all their things. When my aunt passed, I inherited boxes of dishes, photos, and knickknacks I didn't know what to do with. It felt wrong to toss anything, but also impossible to keep it all. What helped was giving myself permission to keep just a few truly meaningful pieces. One photo, a letter, her favorite mug. Then I took pictures of the rest, shared items with other family members, and donated what was left. You're not dishonoring someone by letting go of their things. You're preserving their memory in a way that fits your life now. There's one more shift that's helped me keep clutter from creeping back in, and it's so simple it almost feels like cheating. The no pressure let go box. Letting go isn't always a clean yes or no. Sometimes it's a not sure yet, and that's okay. What helped me stop overthinking every item was creating a simple maybe box. I'd take anything I wasn't ready to part with, the sweater I hadn't worn in years, the decorative bowl I didn't love, but felt weird tossing, and put it all in one bin. Then I'd store it out of sight. A few months later, I'd check the box again. If I hadn't thought about or needed anything inside, I let it go. Most of the time, I didn't even remember what was in there. It's like giving yourself a no-pressure trial run. You're not throwing it out. You're giving it a quiet exit. Let's talk about another trap that used to trip me up before I even started shopping for organizing bins, before I decluttered a thing. Stop buying bins before you know what you're keeping. It's easy to feel like a trip to the container store is productive. I used to think that if I just had the right baskets or bins, I'd finally get everything under control. But here's what actually happened. I'd buy a bunch of cute storage stuff and still have no idea what I was even keeping. Now I do it backwards. I declutter, first really decide what's staying, then figure out what, if anything, needs organizing. Most of the time I realize I already have what I need, or I need a lot less than I thought. It's a mindset shift. Storage shouldn't be a way to hold on to more. It should be what supports what's already simplified. Next up, the surprisingly small habit that helped me build real momentum even on the busiest days. Just set the timer. I used to think I had to tackle an entire room in one go to make it count. That mindset nearly burned me out before I ever got anywhere. What finally worked? A 10-minute timer. That's it. One drawer, one shelf, one corner of the kitchen counter. I'd set a timer, do what I could, and then stop. No pressure to finish. Just one real step forward. Some days that's all I had in me. But those little sessions added up, and I started seeing progress without the emotional exhaustion that used to follow a full-day purge. Consistency, not speed, is what changes the feel of your home. And when I needed a break, I took it. Because real life doesn't stop for a decluttering project. Next, I'll share a mindset that helped me see sentimental clutter in a totally different way. The memory isn't in the object. This one took time to really believe. I used to think that keeping my grandmother's teacups or every preschool drawing was the only way to hold on to the memories. But what I was really doing was storing guilt in the form of just in case. Eventually, I started taking photos, not to post, just to save the memory. Then I let go of the item itself. Now I have a small digital album of things that mattered, without the boxes under the bed. And for the pieces that do still hold meaning, like the quilt my husband's grandmother made, I use them. I let them be part of the house, instead of hidden away in storage. Because if it's special enough to keep, it should be part of your life, not part of your clutter. Declutter your side of the street. Sometimes the hardest part isn't your stuff, it's theirs. Or the fact that they don't want to deal with it at all. When I started decluttering, I kept waiting for my family to join in. But they weren't ready. And honestly, pushing them only made it worse. The turning point came when I stopped trying to convince them and just focused on my own areas. I decluttered my closet, my nightstand, my half of the office, and let the rest be. Over time, something shifted. They started noticing the calm in my spaces, and little by little, they joined in on their own terms. You can't force someone into minimalism, but you can model the benefits, and that's often what speaks loudest. Now let's talk about a different kind of emotional clutter, the kind that comes all at once, usually when someone passes away. Your home is going to feel bigger. After a big declutter session, my husband and I looked around and joked. Did the house just grow? It felt like we could finally breathe. We hadn't knocked down any walls or bought new furniture. We'd just cleared out what didn't need to be there anymore. A packed closet turned into usable space. A cluttered counter suddenly had nothing on it but the coffee maker. It was like we gave our homeroom to exhale. Decluttering doesn't give you more square footage, but it gives you access to the space you already have. And that's often what we really need. One last thing, this entire process gets a lot easier when you see your stuff as something that can help others. It'll feel like you gained square footage. For a long time, I held on to things out of habit, but the truth is, they were just collecting dust while someone else might be searching for exactly that item. I started donating intentionally. Clothes went to women's shelters, toys to local family centers. Even a dining set that sat in our basement for years found a new home through a neighborhood group. It shifted how I saw letting go. It wasn't wasteful, it was generous. It felt good to know that the things I no longer used could be useful, even meaningful to someone else. Letting go isn't just about clearing space. It's about releasing what no longer serves you, so it can serve someone else. Letting go isn't about having less. It's about carrying less of what drains you. Even a few small shifts can clear the space around you and quiet the noise in your head. You'll notice it in how your mornings feel, how much lighter the house feels, and how much less you're managing every day. If this helped in any way, feel free to like or subscribe. It's a small way to support more content that meets you where you are.